What's good, y'all? Welcome back to REL ABT, your station for biblical truths, biblical teachings, and biblical principles to help you on your spiritual journey. My name is Ariel, and I represent Absolute Bible Truth Study. You can catch us every Saturday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time right now on blogtalkradio.com/Absolute Bible Truth, where my teacher and friend, brother and elder, Joshua, is the lead teacher at Absolute Bible Truth. As you can see, I'm a member of Absolute Bible Truth. That's why this YouTube page is called REL ABT. So without further ado, we're going to get into it. And I don't want to take too long to get into it because this topic needs no introduction at all. This is a very controversial topic. And it's a very controversial topic because there's not a lot of information surrounding the topic. If you have a lot of information surrounding the topic, it's actually not controversial at all. It's really simple and easy to understand. And not only is it easy to understand, it's easy to explain. Everyone can get this. This isn't a matter of information. This isn't a matter of knowledge. This isn't a matter of books, right? This is a matter of ego, pride, and tradition. Okay, I'm gonna say that again. Ego, one, this is a matter of ego. Pride, two, and tradition, okay? Because your ego, your pride, and your tradition will keep you from seeing the truth, okay? It will blind you to what's right and to what's wrong because you have your traditions to hold on to, you have your ego to hold on to, and you have your pride to hold on to, because when your pride is broken, a lot of people don't know how to handle when their pride is being broken and or when something has happened to them that hurts their ego, that destroys their worldview, right? Because it's a very sensitive subject. It's a very touchy subject. It's a subject that has been going on from the beginning of time, man. There has always been some type of division around this topic because Satan always has to intervene somehow, and he always has to cause discord between the brethren, right? He has to disrupt the brethren. That's why in the scriptures it tells us Satan, deceived the masses and deceived them with the times and the seasons and all of those things. You can find that in the book of Daniel. I forget what scripture it is off the top of my head, but the topic of today's class is Sabbath or Sunday. What day should we worship? Again, Shabbat, Saturday, or Sunday. What day should we worship, right? Because the Bible literally only speaks on one day we should worship. Literally one day, right? The Bible gives us all the information we need for that one day, but yet we have allowed our ignorance, we have allowed our unwillingness to get educated on the topic to hold us back and to keep us entrapped in our traditions, right? Most people hold on to their tradition rather than the information, rather than the truth, because the tradition feels better. The tradition is more accepted in the world. The tradition is seen as something normal, right? And when you go outside of tradition, when you go outside of the norm, when you go outside of the status quo, then you become enemy, you become rebellious, you become someone who is different from the world. And most people don't like to be around people who are different from them. People like to be around people who think the same as them, right? So if you're different, then you're automatically going to have a target on your back. So without further ado, let's get into this, man. We got to figure out what day should we worship, Saturday or Sunday, right? And we're not only going to figure out according to me, right? This isn't going to be my opinion. This isn't going to be any speculation. This isn't going to be any insinuation, assumption, or belief. This is all going to be scripturally based and historically based as well. We're going to get into spiritual information, which is contained in the Bible. We're going to get into some spiritual information. And we're going to get into some secular history as well. And we have the Holman's Bible Dictionary to help us with that, okay? This video might get a part 2, it might get a part 3, and it might get a part 4, just because it's so much information, and I don't just want to jam-pack everything all at once. I want to give people like bits and pieces at a time so that they can chew on it, so that they can get the nutrients, so that they can digest it, and so that it can give them the proper truth and information and knowledge and understanding that they need from the Most High, because I just want to deliver the information, right? I consider myself a seed planter. All I do is plant the seed, and I let God give the increase, okay? I just plant the seed. I bring you the information. What you do with the information, that's on you, okay? But what you can't say is you didn't have the information if you watch this video, because I'm going to give you all of the information you need to make a decision not only based upon your feelings, but to make a decision based upon the truth. Because as followers of Christ, as followers of this Bible, as followers of the Most High God, we should strive for truth. We need to strive for truth. God is the truth. Jesus Christ is the truth. Therefore, we should know and learn and believe the truth. We should believe the truth no matter if it hurts our family members. We should believe the truth no matter if it hurts our friends. We should believe the truth no matter if it's going against the status quo and or the norm in society, right? We have to worship God rather than worship men. We have to listen to God rather than listen to men. We should obey God rather than we obey men, okay? So, just to give you a little bit of background about myself, I grew up in the Sunday church. I did the pink suits, the purple suits for Easter. I did the Sunday choir. I did the dinners after Sunday service. I did the morning service. I did the afternoon service. We did it all. But one thing we did not do was study at home, okay? When I grew up, we didn't study the Bible in the house. When I grew up, we didn't talk about the Bible in the house. When I grew up, after church, there was no mention of the scriptures. There was no mention of what we just learned. When I grew up, it was only Sunday, let's go to church. Why? Because everyone goes to church, okay? So we didn't go home and study as a family. We didn't go home and listen to worship music as a family, except when it was time to clean up. When it was time to clean up, Mom Dukes knew to throw on that worship music. When we heard that worship music, we knew what it was. It was time to clean up. It was time to wash walls. It was time to clean up under your bed, your closet. It was deep cleaning when that worship music came on. This wasn't the average cleanup. This was that deep cleanup. So I was a Sunday church goer my whole entire life, okay? Until I came into this word, until I actually started to study for myself, until I actually started to question things, until I start seeking knowledge and seeking information and seeking truth, right? We got to be truth seekers, okay? Truth seekers. So we're going to figure out what day should we worship, okay? And we're going to start in the book of Genesis, all right? Let's start in the book of Genesis, and we're going to do Genesis chapter 1, verse 31, okay? Genesis chapter 1 and verse 31. And we're going to start in Genesis. We're going to start with the beginning because we're going to start with the creation, right? God has given us clues all throughout this word. It's up for us to go into this word, piece together the clues, and get the truth and get the information which this Bible is telling us, okay? We can't just listen to our pastors. We can't just listen to our friends. We can't just listen to the internet preachers, all right? We have to go into this word for ourselves. We have to read these words for ourselves, and we have to all come to our own conclusion, okay? All right, so without further ado, let's get into Genesis 1 and 31, all right? This is Genesis 1 and verse 31. And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. In the evening and the morning were the sixth day. So God created everything in 6 days. As you can see, this is to give you context. Genesis 1 is the creation. He created the sun, the moon, the stars, the animals, and everything. And then the sixth day, which we just read, it was very good, right? So let's go to Genesis chapter 2, verse 1. Genesis chapter 2, verse 1. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished, and all the host of them. And on the seventh day, God ended his work which he had made, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made. And God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because in it he had rested from all his work which God created and made. So as you can see, on the seventh day of creation, God did no work. He rested and he sanctified it. Sanctify means to set apart, right? So the 6 days he worked. The seventh day set apart. He did no work. he rested, right? On the seventh day. He set it apart. He sanctified it and hallowed it, because in it, he did no work. He looked at everything which he had made. It was great. He went to work. He went to rest after everything he had made, right? So this is God resting on the seventh day. Why is that important? Because the Sabbath and or Shabbat is also the seventh day. And the Sabbath and or Shabbat is also the day of rest, right? So God rested on the seventh day. Let's see if the children of Israel rested on the seventh day. Or did they rest on the first day, which is Sunday, right? Because nowadays in the modern world, people go to church on Sunday and they rest on Sunday. Let's see what God told the children of Israel to do. Let's go to Exodus chapter 20 and verse 8. Let's go to Exodus chapter 20. Exodus chapter 20 and verse 8. And just to give you a little bit of context about Exodus 20, this is the commandments which God spake to the children of Israel. These are the 10 commandments, okay? This is Exodus chapter 20 and verse 8. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Again, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. And what I find interesting about this verse, verse 8, is it's the only commandment in the word that God tells us to remember, okay? Remember, not forget. Remember, not misunderstand. Remember, not put to the side, right? We are to remember the Sabbath day, but the world tells us to forget the Sabbath day. But God rested on the seventh day. We rest on the seventh day. This is to the children of Israel, right? We're going to continue to read verse 9. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, nor thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth and the sea and all that them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the seventh day and hallowed it. So he blessed the seventh day and he hallowed it. That's why we rest, worship, read, gather, and pray on Shabbat, because God is our Father and we are to follow our Father. And how do you follow your Father? By doing what your father did. Your father worked 6 days to create the world. Then he rested the seventh day. He gave us the same standard. He said, go to work 6 days, do what you want for 6 days. But the seventh day, he hallowed it, rested, and set it apart so that we should worship him and give him back that day, right? I'll put it like this. If your boss, right, told you, I'm going to give you $7,000 at the beginning of the week, on the first day of the week, right? I'm going to give you $7,000. But on the seventh day, the last day of the week, I need you to give me back $1,000, right? You got to give back $1,000 after he gave you $7,000. Now, most of us would say, heck yeah, right? We'd be like, yo, that's easy. I get to keep $6,000. I can do what I want. You just want one back, and you're going to repeat that process every week throughout the rest of my life? Heck yeah, sign me up. Where the dotted line at? I'm on it, right? Everybody's going to do it. Nobody's going to hesitate. Everyone is going to accept that, and they're going to use it to their advantage, and they're not going to mess it up. They're going to do everything in their power to make sure that they keep that $1,000, right? They're going to put it in a separate bank account, and they're going to keep the $6,000 in another bank account. They're not going to have no debit card for that bank account. They're not going to have nothing. They just going to have to go into the bank, show them their ID, show them they the owner, then they're going to get that money out, and they're going to give it back to their boss right at the end of the week. That's the same thing God wants for us. He gives you 6 days to do what you want, and he only wants 1 day in return. Now, your spiritual education, your spiritual life, your spiritual growth is way more important than any dollar amount on this world. Money will pass. Money will fade. You will pass. You will fade. So build this relationship with the Most High and obey his commandments and his doctrine and his truth while you can, while you have the opportunity, because you're not always going to have the opportunity. You don't know when your time is going to be called. I don't know when my time is going to be called. So let's get this thing right and exact so that we can appear before the Most High in trueness and sincerity and say we tried our best, right? So that was Exodus 20, verse 8 through 11. We read about the Shabbat and how God gave us the Sabbath, right? We're building a foundation here. We're going from Genesis to the New Testament. We're building a foundation in order to make the point that the Sabbath is the day we worship. Throughout this video, we're going to talk about Sunday as well. We're going to talk about Sunday. We're going to get there. But right now, we're building a foundation onto why we should worship on Saturday or the Shabbat, Friday sundown to Saturday sundown, right? Now we're going to go to Leviticus 23. Let's go to Leviticus 23. Leviticus 23. And these are concerning the Sabbaths and holy days that the Most High given the children of Israel. And let's go to Leviticus 23 and 1. Leviticus 23 and 1. And it reads, And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, concerning the feast of the Lord, which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocation, even these are my feasts. 6 days shall work be done, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of rest. In holy convocation ye shall do no work therein. It is the Sabbath of the Lord in all your dwellings. Right? So we are to have a holy convocation, meaning we are to gather on the seventh day for joyous occasion, for festive occasion, for happy occasions, right? We eat, we drink, we pray, we rest, and we worship. 1 day a week, and that is Saturday, the Sabbath, right? This is just plain and simple. This isn't me putting my interpretation on it. This isn't me insinuating anything. This isn't me speculating anything, right? I'm not assuming, speculating, or insinuating anything. I'm just reading it plainly what it says, okay? Now we're going to go back to Exodus 31. Exodus 31. We're going to go to Exodus 31. Just building on this foundation. Hopefully you're taking down these precepts. Go back to the video, get you a pen and pad, and make sure you get in this information so you can share it with your friends and family members as well, right? The best way to learn something is to teach it. Why? Because teaching means you learning it twice, okay? You heard it, you learned it. Now you teach it, you learn it again. That's how it helps you stick into your memory more often, okay? So whenever you learn something, teach it. That means you learn it twice and it sticks longer in your head. So we're going to go to Exodus 31 and verse 12. Exodus 31 and verse 12. This is the Most High speaking with Moses. The Most High speaking through Moses to the children of Israel on how to build the tabernacle and what to give the Levites and all of that stuff. But we're going to jump down to verse 12. Exodus 31 and verse 12. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak thou also unto the children of Israel, saying, Verily my Sabbaths ye shall keep, for it is a sign between me and you throughout your generations, that ye may know that I am the Lord that doth sanctify you. So the Sabbath is a sign throughout your generations from the Most High to the children of Israel, right? I know what you're thinking. Well, the Most High gave it to the children of Israel. We aren't the children of Israel. That's not true. Anytime you enter into the fold to worship the God of the Israelites, you become an Israelite. You become a spiritual Israelite. You become partakers of the covenant. You become partakers of the promises. You become partaker in the actions that the Israelites did so that you can be seen in God's eyes as his children as well, okay? Anytime throughout history someone joined the Israelites, they had to partake in the customs, traditions, laws, statutes, and commandments that the Israelites did in order for you to be grafted in order for you to take hold of the covenant, in order for you to receive the promises. You had to do what God told the Israelites to do, okay? And when you partake in these promises, then you become as one of them who is born into the nation of Israel. Some people are Gentiles who will get grafted in, who partake of the covenant. They will get put into the fold, and some people are natural born Israelites. In 2019, which is the year we are in, no one knows who the Israelites are and who the Gentiles are. We have no clue, right? So much mixing and mingling of races, so much history being lost that we don't have an idea who is who, right? But when you partake in Christ's sacrifice, you become Christ's brother, Christ's sister, and you partake of the covenant. Okay? So we're going to continue in verse 13. Speak thou also unto the children of Israel, saying, My Sabbath ye shall keep, for it is a sign between me and you throughout your generations, that ye may know that I am the Lord, that doth sanctify you. Ye shall keep the Sabbath, therefore it is holy unto you. Everyone that defileth it surely be put to death. For whosoever doeth any work therein, that soul shall be cut off from among his people. 6 days may work be done, but in the seventh is the Sabbath of rest, holy to the Lord. Whosoever doeth any work in the Sabbath day, ye shall surely be put to death. Wherefore the children of Israel shall keep the Sabbath, to observe the Sabbath throughout their generations for a perpetual covenant. It is a sign between me and the children of Israel forever. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, and on the seventh day he rested and was refreshed. And he gave unto Moses, when he had made an end of communing with him upon Mount Sinai, 2 tablets of testimony, tables of stone, written with the finger of God. Right? So 3 things that really stuck out to me in verses 15 to 18 was verse 16, the perpetual covenant. Perpetual means it keeps restarting. It never stops. It's perpetual. It keeps going on and on, meaning it lasts from generation to generation to generation to generation, right? It's perpetual. It keeps going. And then in verse 17, it says, forever. It is a sign between me and the children of Israel forever. Not for one generation, not for the Israelites born in the land, not for the Gentiles born outside the land, but for everyone forever. And lastly, this is not Moses speaking. A lot of people say, oh, that's Moses' law. Oh, that was given to Moses, and we don't have to abide by what Moses said. But this isn't what Moses said. This is what God said. He just used Moses as the person who gives the information to the Israelites, because if he was to give it to the Israelites, they'd be too scared and they'd be dead, because the voice of the Most High is thunderous. It's loud. It's like lightning crashing down. It's nothing to play with. So the Most High used Moses so he could be the mediator of the covenant. God talks to Moses. Moses talked to the people. Take out Moses. It's just the Most High. And it says written with the finger of God. Written with the finger of God. Not the finger of Moses. Not the finger of Joshua. Not the finger of the Israelites. But the finger of God. Keep that in mind, man. Perpetual covenant forever, written by the finger of God for the Sabbath day. All right? And it's a sign between us and the Most High. When he see us keeping the Sabbath, when he see us worshiping on Sabbath, he looking down and saying, yeah, there go my people right there. Those are the ones who believe in me. Those are the ones who are doing my will, right? Those are the ones who are trying to be right in his sight, right? So the Sabbath is a sign between the Most High and the Israelites. Now we're going to go to Ezekiel. We're going to go to Ezekiel chapter 20. In Ezekiel chapter 20, and so far we just continually building and building and building on this foundation, man. Which day should we worship? Shabbat or Sunday? Saturday or Sunday, right? As we keep reading, we just keep finding more information for Shabbat. More information for Shabbat. More proof on why we should keep the Sabbath, right? Because it's in the Bible, not somewhere that we can read about in secular history. This is our spiritual book. This is our spiritual guide. This is the basic instructions before leaving earth. Bible. Basic instructions before leaving earth. Okay? So, let's listen to the instructions. Ezekiel chapter 20 verse 19. Ezekiel chapter 20 verse 19. I am the Lord your God. Walk in my statutes and keep my judgments and do them. And hallow my Sabbath, and they shall be a sign between me and you, that you may know that I am the Lord your God. So, Ezekiel just reiterates the point in Exodus to where it's a sign between us and the Most High. Again, just another reference, another building block, another foundational piece for all of those who may be struggling with what to keep, Sabbath or Sunday. For those struggling, not knowing what to do, Sabbath or Sunday, we're going to see. We're just building a foundation, brick by brick, one brick at a time, one step at a time. Now we're going to go into the New Testament. We're going to see what our New Testament brothers and sisters did concerning the Sabbath day, okay? We're going to go to our leader, our teacher, and the man who did the ultimate sacrifice, our big brother Jesus Christ, our King, Lord, God, and Savior. Let's see what he did. Luke chapter 4. Luke chapter 4. Luke chapter 4. Luke chapter 4. Let's get it. Luke chapter 4, and we're going to do verse 16. Luke 4:16. This is Luke chapter 4, verse 16. And he came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up. And as his custom was, he went into the synagogue on the Sabbath and stood up for to read. So, Luke chapter 4 and 16, just to give you context of what's going on, this is Christ going into the temple on the Sabbath day. But this is the synagogue because it changed later on because the temple was destroyed. But the synagogue was the place of worship, right? The synagogue was where the Levites was teaching all of the Gentiles and everybody who believed on the word, right? That's what the synagogue was for. The synagogue, he went to the synagogue on the Sabbath day and stood up to read. So, as his custom was, meaning as his tradition was, as his way of life was, as the norm in society was, right? That's your custom, something you normally do, something everyone does. It's tradition, and it's the status quo in the land. You go into the synagogue on Sabbath to read, to worship, to teach, to learn, to commune, to feast, right? Shabbat worship, just another point. Christ is our example. Christ is our teacher. And he went into the synagogue on Sabbath day, not Sunday. He went into the synagogue on Sabbath day, not Sunday. It's not hard to understand. But what is hard is fighting tradition. I know. I've been there. I fought this. When I first came into this, I'm like, no way. No way we're supposed to go to church on Sunday. Everything's supposed to be done on Sunday. We're supposed to worship on Sunday. Everyone is doing it. This is how it's supposed to be. This is how I was brought up. But I was wrong. I was fighting it. I was misled. I was mistaught. And I had to get over my pride, and I had to get over my ego, and I had to get over my traditions. I was wrong. I was misled. It wasn't my fault. It's not like I was taught this growing up. I had to figure this thing out on my own. When I did figure it out on my own, I had to let go of false traditions. I had to let go of lies. I had to let go of miseducation. I had to let go of misinformation. I had to let go of false prophets and false teachers and Satan's demons who are transformed into angels of light. I had to see through it. I had to see through it. And you have to see through it too. And you can do it. I believe in you. You just got to make the right choices for God, not man. So, as we can see in Luke 4 and 16, Christ went into the synagogue on Sabbath day and taught. Now we're going to go to Acts chapter 17. Acts chapter 17. Oh, no. Let's not go to Acts chapter 17 yet. Let's stay in Luke and let's go to Luke 6 and 5. We're going to stay in Luke and we're going to go to Luke chapter 6 verse 5. And this is Luke chapter 6 verse 5. Again, we are dealing with Christ and the Sabbath. This is Luke chapter 6 verse 5. And he said unto them that the Son of Man is Lord also of the Sabbath. So the Lord is, Christ is Lord also of the Sabbath. Sabbath, the Lord means master. Okay? So Christ is the master of the Sabbath. Christ is the Lord of the Sabbath. The Sabbath day belongs to him. The Sabbath day is what he is in control of. The Sabbath day is his day of rest, worship, reflection, reading, prayer, and communion. He is the Lord of the Sabbath. He didn't say he is the Lord of Sunday. He didn't say go to synagogue on Sunday. He didn't say worship on Sunday. He didn't say any of those things. He's the Lord of the, He's He is the Lord of the Sabbath day. The Lord of the Sabbath day. Not Sunday. Don't put your own interpretations on the word. Let the word interpret itself. The Bible will explain itself. You can read this for yourself. Okay? Now we're going to go to Acts chapter 17 and verse 2. Let's see what the disciples did. Because if we're supposed to go to church on Sunday, it would tell us in the word to go to church on Sunday. The word told us to go to church on Sabbath day. The word told us to go to synagogue on Sabbath day. The word told us to commune, eat, rest, pray, and worship on Sabbath day. The Bible told us to rest on Sabbath day. Leviticus 23 told us to have a holy convocation. A holy convocation is where you read the word, you're taught the word, you commune with like-minded people in the word, right? Christ went into the synagogue on Sabbath day, and you learn two ways. You learn by one, teaching, verbal communication, or you learn by two, actions, sight, watching everybody around you. So if we can see Christ's actions, he going into the Sabbath day, synagogue on Sabbath day, who are we to go into church on Sunday and say we should be doing Sunday worship? Who are we to switch around? Who are we to make new commandments? Who are we to make new days? God never said make a new day. God never said you needed a new day. God never said it was okay to make a new day. It's wrong to add to his word. It's wrong to add to his word. You can't add or take away from his word. So be careful what you do, because you may be adding or taking away from the word. This is Acts chapter 17. Acts chapter 17, verse 2. Acts chapter 17, verse 2. And Paul, as his manner was, went in unto them, and 3 Sabbath days reasoned with them out of the scriptures. Right? So, Paul is reasoning with the Jews out of the scriptures on Sabbath day, not on Sunday. Right? Was it Paul's custom to go into the synagogue on Sabbath? Let's see what the word says. We don't have to guess. We don't have to go into secular history. We don't have to go into any other book. We can go right here in this book. Let's see what Paul's customs was and his manner was. Let's see what he did on Sabbath day, okay? Let's see what Paul did. Let's see what Paul's custom was, all right? Excuse me, I'm just trying to find it. I did not write it down, but we're gonna get it. As was his custom, he went into the synagogue to worship. I thought it was in Acts 17, but that was a totally different. It still proved my point out how he went into the synagogue on a Sabbath day. But I want to get the one where he says it was his custom, because that, I believe, is a more powerful precept. Let's get that precept, as was his custom. All right. I'm drawing a blank right now. So, Acts 17 and 2, it says that Paul went in 3 Sabbath days to reason with the Jews. But there's a better one that says, as was his custom. I can't find it right now. But you can go in and Google it on your own. It says, as was his custom, he went into the synagogue on Sabbath day. Okay? So you just got to Google it on your own. I do not have it with me right now at this time. Please forgive me. My apologies. But it's in there. It's somewhere. I just can't find it right now. Just giving it one more shot before I give it up. Just trying to give it one more shot. I know I highlighted somewhere. I know something like Acts 20 something. Just trying to find it real quick. I'm giving it one more shot. Bear with me, family. Bear with me. But Google it on your own. Pause this video right here and Google as was his custom. Went to the synagogue, and it's going to pop up in the book of Acts. Or if you just, you can use the concordance as well. Let me see if I can find it in the concordance. Just got to look up the word Sabbath. And it should tell me in the concordance where it's at. Because it gives you every word for Sabbath. The concordance gives you every word for Sabbath. So if you look up Sabbath in the concordance, it will tell you everywhere the word Sabbath is written in this book. So if you're ever looking for the word Sabbath, or if you're ever looking for any word at all, like prayer, you come in here and you look for prayer, and it'll tell you where is all of the words for prayer. Like it'll tell you where is all of the word for Sabbath. Let's see if it's Acts 15:21. For Moses' old time and read and preached in the synagogues every Sabbath day. So that's another example of people going into the synagogue on Sabbath day, Acts 15:21. But that's not what we're looking for. We're not looking for that. But that's another scripture you can add to your repertoire. Let's see what 16 and 13 says. Nope, that just says they went and prayed by the thing on Sabbath. (18 and 4). All right, so can't find it. Gave it a good shot, and you also learn how to use the concordance as well. So you just go into the concordance, you look at the word, and then you look up where it's at in the book. It says Acts 1:12, 13, 14, 27, 42, 44, 15, 21, 16, 13, 17, 2, 18, 4. Just a whole bunch of places where the word Sabbath is. So as you can see, Paul went into the synagogue on Sabbath day. He did not go into the synagogue on Sunday. All right. So as we can see, Christ went into the synagogue on Sabbath. Paul went into the synagogue on Sabbath with the disciples. God rested on the seventh day, hallowed it, sanctified it. The children of Israel went into the temple and into the synagogue on Sabbath day for holy convocation and communion, to teach and hear and preach the word. So now let's talk about Sunday, okay? And we're going to talk about Sunday because Sunday is what is being done right now in the world. Sunday is the day of worship. Sunday is the day of prayer, rest and relaxation, right? Everything closes early on Sunday, and everything is like real slow and slowed down. It's like nobody's on the road. Everybody's in their house chilling. Most people got the day off, right? So that sounds exactly like a Sabbath. They're resting. They're going to church. And they got the day off from work, right? That sounds like the Sabbath, but Sunday is not the Sabbath, okay? Sunday never took place in the Sabbath. The reason why Sundays, stores close early, people get off from work, and the world slows down is because in 321 AD, again, you can research this on your own, in 321 AD, Constantine made it illegal to work on Sunday, and he made Sunday the day of worship because the Romans were worshiping the literal sun, S-U-N, on Sunday. They were worshiping the sun, the S-U-N, on Sunday in their paganism, right? So Constantine was a pagan. He was a pagan worshiper of paganism. And Sunday, they were worshiping. And the Jews were worshiping on Saturday. So it was like a double day off, right? So what Constantine said was, we're going to make Sunday the day off, except for people who work in agriculture. But we're going to close everything on Sunday. We're going to worship on Sunday. We're going to give God the praise, right? And that's where it got confusion and it got mixed up, because people thought that they were worshiping the Son of God, the S-O-N, Jesus Christ. But no, they were worshiping the Son, the S-U-N, the big ball of light created by the Most High God, right? So they mixed the 2 days. The pagans and the Jews got mixed together on Sunday and in 321 AD, and that tradition just carried on until present time. That's why banks close on Sunday, stores close at like 6 o'clock on Sunday, schools are closed on Sunday, everybody get to rest, everybody get to go to church, pray, sing, commune. They do all of that on Sunday because of what happened in 321 AD. That's not biblical, but that's the tradition of the world. That is the tradition of man. That's not in this Bible anywhere. That's not in the Bible at all. But it's tradition, right? You've been doing it since you were young. You've been doing it since you were a baby. You've been doing it since you were a child, and now you're a grown man or a woman, right? So that's why you go to church on Sunday, because of something that happened in secular history. Not something that happened in biblical history, but something that happened in secular and worldly history, okay? And the word Sunday worship is not anywhere in this Bible, so I can't even go to the Bible and try to build a foundation on Sunday worship, because it's not here. It's just not here. Like, there's literally no word for Sunday worship in this Bible, because they never worshiped on Sunday. Never. But there is a couple of scriptures that Sunday Christians and or modern day Christians like to twist to their own destruction to make believe that Sunday was actually a day of worship in the scriptures. Now, let's go to one of them or a couple of them. Let's go to 1 Corinthians 16, 1 through 2. 1 Corinthians 16, 1 through 2. This is what the modern day Christian or the Sunday Christian or someone who worships on Sunday, they like to go to this verse to try to prove their point that Sunday worship is in the Bible. And it says, verse 16, now concerning the collection for the saints, as I have given order to the churches of Galatia, even so do ye. So it's saying now concerning the collection of the saints, meaning the money they collect to give to the saints in order for them to eat, buy clothes, build houses, run away, stay safe, right? They collect money to give back to the church. So this is what they're doing. Verse 2, upon the first day of the week, let every one of you lay by him in store as God hath proposed him, that there be no gatherings when I come. So Paul is saying, pick up the money on the first day of the week so that when I come, I can take it and we can bounce, right? I'm going to give it to the saints after I collect it. But this is not saying this is a set apart day. This is not saying this is a day to worship. This is not saying this is a day for rest, reading, and prayer. This is not saying this is a day of holy convocation. This is a day that Paul is saying, listen, I'm going to be in town soon. Collect the money on the first day of the week. So when I come, I can just get it from one place and I don't have to go from church to church to church to church, right? Everybody collect the money on the first day so I can come and get it and I'll be out. I don't have to go to church, his church. I don't have to stay in the city 3 days. I can come get what I need to get and go and distribute it evenly amongst the saints. This is not saying Sunday is a set apart day. This is not saying Sunday hallowed by God. This is not saying the first day of the week is a holy convocation. This is just saying, now concerning the collection for the saints, as I have given order to the churches of Galatia, even so do ye. So I told the churches in Galatia, so I'm telling you, the churches in Corinthia, collect the money on the first day of the week. Upon the first day of the week, let every one of you lay by him in store as God has proposed him. So what God put on your heart, give. That there be no gatherings and when I come. So that's all that's saying. That's saying nothing about it being a day of worship. That's saying nothing about it being a day of rest, relaxation from work. That's saying nothing about being hallowed or sanctified. That's saying nothing about a holy convocation. Remember, for the Sabbath day, we got holy convocation We got sanctified, hallowed, set apart. We got all of that for Sabbath. This is not Sabbath, all right? Now we're going to go to another one, which is Acts chapter 20, verse 7. Acts chapter 20, verse 7. In Acts chapter 20, verse 7 reads, "And upon the first day of the week, when the disciples came together to break bread, Paul preached unto them, ready to depart on the morrow, and continued his speech until midnight." So a lot of Sunday Christians or modern day Christians like to use Acts chapter 20, verse 7 to say, hey, upon the first day of the week, when the disciples came together to break bread, Paul preached unto them, ready to depart on the morrow, and continued his speech until midnight. So they're saying, oh, Paul break bread on the first day of the week. Paul break bread every day of the week. This is just giving you a timeline as to when they broke bread, because this was just right after the Feast of Unleavened Bread. You can read in this word where they break bread on other days. You can read in this book where they break bread daily, where they spoke daily, where they communed daily, right? Because that's what you do as a Christian. That's what you do as a follower of Christ. You commune, you break bread, right? If someone comes over your house, don't they usually have food for you? Don't they usually cook for you? Because it's a nice home warming thing to do. It's a nice civilized person's way of saying, hey, thank you for coming to our house. We appreciate your presence so much. We want to give you some food. Everybody likes food. Everybody talks over food. Everybody has a good time over food. This is just saying that they had food the first day of the week. They have food every day of the week. This isn't saying that the first day of the week is sanctified or hallowed. This isn't saying the first day of the week is a holy convocation. This isn't saying God rested on the first day of the week. This is saying none of that. All this is saying is they had food on the first day of the week. So let's not try to take scripture and twist it, assume and insinuate and speculate this is the new day of worship because of this. No, that's not true. Let the Bible be true and all men a liar. Take it for what it is. Face value. It's easy to be understood. This is no deepness around it. This is no theological metaphors around it. This is simple, plain and clear, giving you a literal view or picture of what are they doing that day. This isn't symbolic. This isn't metaphorical. This isn't spiritual. This is literally men sitting down eating. That's all the word is saying. Take it for what it is. All right. So we just went to two places as to where the modern day Christian or the Sunday Christian misinterpret the Bible. I gave you the proper understanding. I didn't give you what I think. I gave you what the word says. This whole time I'm giving you what the word says, not what I think. I am not speculating or maybeing or guessing what the word is saying. I'm reading the word and giving it to you verbatim, clear, right? I can't get to everything in the first video, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to do a part 2, maybe a part 3, and maybe a part 4. I don't know, but I got to clear this information up. I got to clear up the misinformation and give you the proper information for you to get the best spiritual education, okay? Now we're going to go to another scripture which they like to use to misinterpret the meaning of the scriptures. Let's go to Romans chapter 14, verse 5. Romans chapter 14, verse 5. Sunday Christians and or modern day Christians mess up Romans chapter 14, verse 5. Let's read it and I'll tell you why. One man esteemeth one day above another. Another esteemeth every day alike. Let every man be fully persuaded in his own mind. He that regardeth the day, regardeth it unto the Lord. And he that regardeth not the day to the Lord, he doth not regard it. He that eateth, eateth to the Lord, for he giveth God thanks. And he that eateth not to the Lord, he eateth not, and giveth God thanks. So what this is saying is, whatever day you choose to read, whatever day you choose to have a holy convocation, whatever day you choose, it's okay. Don't judge each other because of he likes to hang out with his friends and study the word on Wednesday, and he likes to hang out with his friends and study the word on Friday. Whatever you choose, cool. Whatever you choose, cool. Because you both doing it for the Lord, right? But here's the thing. This says what man esteemeth. what man esteemeth, humans, me and you, right? I can choose a day to study the scriptures. He can choose a day to study the scriptures. But what we can't do is choose a day that God chose for us to rest, read, pray, reflect, and have a holy convocation, right? God is different from man. God is up here, man is down here. This doesn't say what day God esteemeth. This says what day man esteemeth. Keep that in mind. Be very attentive to detail into what's going on. It says what man esteemeth. What you like to eat, I may not like to eat. You might like to eat red meat. He might like to eat chicken. It's okay. Y'all both eating for the Lord. He studied the Bible on Wednesday. He studied the Bible on Monday. It's okay. Y'all both study for the Lord. God, not man, set apart the Sabbath day. God, not man, set apart the seventh day of the week. God, not man, set to have a holy convocation on Sabbath day. God, not man, rested on the seventh day of the week from creating the earth. God, not man, told us to, in Leviticus 23, to have a holy convocation. God, not man, sanctified the seventh day of the week. This is nothing about choosing Sunday. This is nothing about choosing Friday. This is all about what day man esteemeth to be a day of study or a day to give thanks to God, right? I choose to give God thanks to God every day. But Shabbat is my day of worship, rest, reading, and reflecting. I teach my family. I listen to my elders teach me. And I give God the praise on Sabbath day. I don't work. I rest. I read. I pray. I reflect. And I have a holy convocation with my church on Sabbath day. Now, if we want to have a Wednesday Bible study, that's cool. If you want to have a Monday Bible study, that's cool. But we're not going to change the sanctified day of Saturday to say Sunday is now the sanctified day, because the scriptures don't teach that. The scriptures don't say that. The scriptures doesn't even lead you to believe that Sunday is the day of worship, right? We're going to get into the Lord's Day right now, so I need for you guys to take out your Holman's Bible Dictionary if you have one. Your Holman's Bible Dictionary. You can download the eSword, Google eSword. It's a Bible study tool, and you can get the Holman's Bible Dictionary on the eSword if you don't have the Holman's Bible Dictionary hard copy. There's an electric copy online via eSword, or you can probably just Google Holman Bible Dictionary PDF, and it'll probably have an electronic copy so you can follow along, because we're going to get into the Lord's Day. The Holman's Bible Dictionary gives you good information on why they call it the Lord's Day. Remember, the topic is, should we worship Saturday, Shabbat, or Sunday? And when you look into the Holman's Bible Dictionary, under Sunday, there is no definition or meaning for Sunday. When you look up Sunday, they direct you in the Holman's Bible Dictionary, they direct you to the Lord's Day. So the Lord's Day is also known as Sunday. So we're going to look up the Lord's Day in the Holman's Bible Dictionary. We're going to read it. We're going to go through it real fast. And we're going to figure out, why do people go to church on Sunday? What is the reason they call it the Lord's Day? We're going to get a little bit of information from the Holman's Bible Dictionary. All right, we're under the Lord's Day. A designation for Sunday, the first day of the week, used only once in the New Testament, Revelations 1 and 10. The Greek word for Lord's, however, is precisely the same as that used in term for the Lord's Supper, 1 Corinthians 11, verse 20. In fact, the Didache, an early Christian manual for worship and instruction, links the two terms together, indicating that the Lord's Supper was observed each Lord's Day. Herein may lie the origin of the term, because the first day of the week was the day on which the early Christians celebrated the Lord's Supper. It became known as the Lord's Day, the distinctively Christian day of worship. So this became the Lord's Day Sunday because of the Didache, which is a book that some man wrote and told Christians the instructions on how to serve God. But the Bible is the instruction on how to serve God. The Bible is the instruction on how to serve God, not the Didache. Okay, the Didache is an early Christian manuscript and or manual / book that told Christians, gave them instructions, guidance, rules on how to serve God. So you already fallen away when you pick up the Didache and think it has some type of relevance or some type of authority, because the Didache has no authority over the scriptures, okay? Let's continue to read. The earliest account of a first day worship experience is found in Acts 20, verse 7 through 12. Here Paul joined the Christians of Troas in the evening of the first day of the week for breaking of bread, probably a reference of the Lord's Supper. The actual day is somewhat uncertain. Evening of the first day could refer to Saturday evening by Jewish reckoning or Sunday evening by Roman reckoning. Since the incident involved Gentiles on Gentile soil, however, the probable reference is to Sunday night. So they don't even know, they're not conclusive, they don't have a definite decision on what day of the week it was. To the Jews, the first day of the week is Saturday night, because when the sun go down, that's the start of a new day. But to the Roman reckoning, that's Sunday morning, because they don't start their days at night, they start their days in the morning. So the Holman's Bible Dictionary is telling you they don't even have a conclusive reason as to what day it was, but they're assuming it was the first day Sunday because of Roman reckoning, because they don't have a definite answer. We went over Acts 20, verse 7 through 12 earlier in the lesson, because that just shows that they was breaking bread. That doesn't show that Paul changed the Sabbath to Sunday. That just shows that Paul had free time, and in his free time he went to break bread with them on the first day of the week. Let's continue. The importance of Sunday to the first century Christian is also intimated in 1 Corinthians 16, 1 and 2, giving instructions about a special relief offering he wanted to take to the Christians in Jerusalem. Paul suggested that the Corinthians should set aside their weekly contributions on the first day of the week. Paul probably mentioned this day because he knew that his readers routinely assembled on that day for worship, and that would be the logical time for them to set aside for their offering. So again, we went through 1 Corinthians 16, 1 through 2. Paul didn't change the Shabbat day. He didn't change the day of worship. He said, okay, since you're already gathering on Sunday, collect money when you guys come together so that when I come, I can get the offering and give it to the saints in Jerusalem. Because remember, this is Corinthia. This is in the Roman Empire, so this isn't Jerusalem. So he went to Rome, got the money, went back to Jerusalem, distributed to the saints evenly, okay? That's not him changing the Sabbath day to Sunday. That's not him changing the day of worship to Sunday. That's not him changing God's set-apart day to Sunday, all right? We're going to look to the next paragraph. Two other second century documents also shed light on the significance of the Lord's Day for the early church. First, Ignatius, in his epistle to the Magnesians about AD 110 to 117, stressed the importance of the Lord's Day by contrasting the worship done on that day with that formerly observed on the Sabbath day. Second, Justin Martyr, about 150 AD, wrote the first extant Christian description of a worship service. He noted that the early Sunday morning service began with baptism, included scripture readings, expository preaching and prayer, and then concluded with observance of the Lord's Supper. So again, two first and second century men are doing these things on their own. They're not doing these things because the Bible recommended it. They are doing these things off of their own will. They can't change the day of worship off their own will. Next paragraph. First and second century Christian documents indicate the Sunday quickly became the standard day for Christian worship, but they do not explain how or why this change from the Sabbath to the Lord's Day came about. So they can't explain why this day came about. They can't explain why they changed it, because they have no explanation, because there is none, because the Most High wants you worshiping on Shabbat, on Saturday, not on Sunday. The most obvious reason, of course, was the resurrection of Jesus, which took place on the first Lord's Day. Since the earliest collective experience of the disciples with the risen Lord took place on Easter Sunday evening, Luke 24, 36 to 49, John 20, 19 to 23, one might naturally expect the disciples to gather at that same hour on subsequent Sundays to remember him in observance of the supper. This pattern perhaps is reflected in the service of Troas in Acts 20. So what they're saying is, okay, since Christ died or rose on first day of the week, Sunday, which I agree, he did rise on Sunday early in the morning. They said, okay, let's gather every Sunday morning so that we can celebrate and observe Christ's resurrection, right? So they carried this tradition from the 1st and 2nd century all the way into modern day 2019 and beyond, because they believe that they are celebrating the Lord's Supper and the Lord's resurrection. But the Most High never told you to celebrate Christ's resurrection. He never told you to continually gather on Christ's resurrection. He never told you to continually celebrate every week of Christ's resurrection. Christ rose one time. That was during Passover. That's once a year. That's not every Sunday. But they took that once a year rising of Christ, one time in his life, and they make it a weekly tradition. They created their own traditions. They went about to establish their own traditions. They're not following the Most High's laws, statutes, and commandments. They're not following the instructions that Christ left behind. They're making their own traditions. Next paragraph. The change in time of worship from evening to morning, though, probably came about of practical necessity. Writing to the Emperor Trajan at the beginning of the 2nd century, Pliny the Younger, governor of Bithynia, reported that in compliance with Trajan's edict against seditious assemblies, he had ordered that no group, including the Christians, could meet at night. Pliny then described an early morning service of Christians forbidden to meet at night, the only other hour available to them on the first day of the week. Early in the morning before they went to work, it is likely that the practice then spread throughout the empire wherever similar regulations against evening worship were enforced. So, this governor outlawed people meeting at night because he said there are seditious assemblies going on, people plotting against the government, right? So he said you can't meet at night. It's outlawed. So what do? They say, okay, we're not going to die. We're not going to go to jail. We have family to take care of. We have the gospel to preach. So let's just meet in the morning before we go to work. So the first day of the week, they met in the morning before they went to work, as you can read, and they gathered and they break bread and hang out and they learn scriptures. That has nothing to do with them changing the Shabbat day. That has nothing to do with them changing the set-apart day of worship. These are just men creating their own traditions based on the circumstances in the government that they're in. If the government tell you right now, you can't meet at night or we'll throw you in jail or we'll kill you, most of you would meet in the morning before you go to work. You will find time so that you can stay with your families, stay making your money, and stay living your lives if the government say you can't leave out at night. That's the same thing they did right here. It's not changing the Sabbath day. But you see throughout all of these chapters why they're doing these things. But it doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it acceptable to change the Lord's day. They didn't change the Lord's day. They just made it convenient for themselves to Bible study, worship, and pray on another day, to reflect on another day, to meet on another day, because they still understand that the Sabbath is the holy day, not Sunday. Next paragraph. Although the Jewish Christians probably also observed the Sabbath, the early Christians saw Sunday as a day of joy and celebration, not a substitute for the Sabbath. In conclusion, although some Jewish Christians probably also observed the Sabbath, they're observing the Sabbath, the early Christians saw Sunday as a day of joy and celebration, not a substitute for Sabbath. Not a substitute for Sabbath. Not a substitute for Sabbath. The use of the term Sabbath to refer to Sunday did not become common until the English Puritans began to do so after AD 1500. Evidence from the early centuries clearly shows that the Christians regarded Sunday as a day to rejoice in the new life brought by the resurrection. On other days, Christians might fast and kneel when praying. The joyous character of the Lord's Day made those actions inappropriate on Sunday. Soon after Christianity became the religion of the Roman Empire, Sunday was officially declared the day of rest. So, in conclusion, as you can see, Sunday is no substitute for Sabbath. You can't go before the Most High and say, God, I know you want me to keep Sabbath, but I'm going to keep Sunday because I choose to keep Sunday. You can't do that. That's going to get you in big trouble. That's going to get you on the wrong end of the Most High's grace, because you can't choose what you want to do. You have to follow the instructions given in the scriptures. As you can see, men, not even disciples in the Bible, but men who came way after decided to make these traditions, which are not in the Bible, which are not okay because it goes against the scriptures. People are substituting Sunday for the Sabbath. They say, okay, I'm worshiping on Sunday. I don't have to keep Sabbath. That's not true. We have to continue in the traditions which they came to us from Christ and from the disciples, okay? We can't go about to establish our own traditions. We can't go about to establish our own righteousness. We can't go about to establish our own day of worship. Shabbat is the day of worship, okay? Sunday is not even the day of worship because the Most High didn't rest on that day. The Most High didn't say have a holy convocation on that day. That was men coming together and saying, hey, let's use Sunday to remember Christ's resurrection. And then that became a substitute for Sabbath, which was wrong. Don't follow the wrong actions of man. Follow the right actions of Christ and the disciples. All right. So now we're going to get back into the scriptures. We got 2 more scriptures to go. Then we're going to end it right then and there. All right. So we're going to, in the last 2 places, we're going to go to is Mark and 2 Thessalonians. So get your Bibles out. We're going to go to Mark chapter 7, verse 9. Mark chapter 7, verse 9, because we already see that with the Holman's Bible Dictionary, they went out to establish their own traditions, but Christ gave us a warning as to why we should not do that. I'm going to go to Mark 7 and 9. Mark 7 and 9. Mark chapter 7. And we're going to start with verse 6 through 9. He answered and said unto them, well have Isaiah prophesied of you hypocrites, as it is written, this people honor me with their lips, but their heart is far from me. So this is the Christ talking to the Pharisees, because the Pharisees saying that disciples don't keep the traditions of God by washing their hands. But Christ is telling them, you don't keep the commandment of God because you are going about to establish your own traditions and righteousness by creating new traditions. And that's what the modern day Christian is doing. They are taking the seat of the Pharisees and they're trying to establish their own righteousness and their own traditions. Sunday is a new tradition. Sunday is not a biblical tradition. Sunday is not God's tradition. Sunday is man's tradition. So Christ will be talking to the modern day Christian just as he will be talking to the Pharisees back in his time, because they're establishing their own righteousness. God's day, which he established, is Shabbat, Saturday. So if we want to follow God, we keep the Shabbat on Saturday. If we want to follow man, we keep Sunday worship. But Christ is telling us how you are a hypocrite for establishing your own righteousness. So we just read Mark chapter 7, verse 6. Now we're going to start at verse 7. Howbeit in vain do they worship me, teaching for doctrines the commandments of men. For laying aside the commandment of God, ye hold your tradition of men, as washing of pots and cups, and many other such like things ye do. And he said unto them, full well ye reject the commandment of God, that ye may keep your own tradition. So they are rejecting Moses' commandment, rejecting God's commandment, rejecting Christ's commandments by going about to establish their own righteousness on Sunday. That's not a commandment of God. That's not a tradition of God. That's not a tradition of Christ. That's a tradition of men. We are to follow God, not man. We're going to go to the last place, and that's 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. We're going to go to 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. And we're going to start with verse 11. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 and verse 11. And for this cause God shall send them strong delusion, that ye should believe a lie. So God has sent out a strong delusion back in this time so that the Israelites and the Gentiles will believe a lie if they don't follow the commandments of Christ. Okay? So don't fall under that strong delusion. Don't believe a lie of Sunday worship. Verse 12. That they all might be damned who believe not the truth, but had pleasure in unrighteousness. So if you don't believe the truth and you have pleasure in unrighteousness, then you have a strong possibility of being under a strong delusion. Okay? Verse 13. But we are bound to give thanks always to God for you, brethren, beloved of the Lord, because God hath from the beginning chosen you to salvation through sanctification of the Spirit and belief of the truth. So you get sanctified when you believe the spirit of truth. Verse 14. Whereunto he called you by our gospel to the obtaining of the glory of our Lord Jesus Christ. Therefore, brethren, stand fast and hold the traditions which ye have been taught, whether by word or our epistle. So Paul is telling them, stand fast in the traditions which you're taught, whether by our word, our verbal communication, our mouths, us talking to you, or by our epistles. Our epistles is letters, written instructions, written examples on a piece of paper. So Paul is telling you, only follow what we told you out of our mouths or what we wrote on paper. Don't follow the Pharisees. Don't follow people who are trying to establish their own righteousness. Don't follow people who create their own traditions. Follow the traditions of God, Christ, and the disciples. Okay? And the tradition of God, Christ, and the disciples is Shabbat worship, not Sunday worship. God rested on the seventh day. Christ rested on the seventh day. Christ is the master and or the Lord of the seventh day, Sabbath. Christ never said he is the Lord of Sunday. Christ never said rest on the first day. Christ never said have a holy convocation on the first day. So as you can see in this video, it's clear as day that the Most High want us worshiping on Shabbat, Saturday, not Sunday. You can Bible study, have a holy convocation any day you want if your schedule permits. You can have Bible study Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday if you want to. But you can't substitute that for the Sabbath, okay? You can't say, oh, since I'm having Bible study on Wednesday, I no longer have to keep Sabbath. You can't say, oh, since I worship on Sunday, I no longer have to worship on Sabbath. You can't substitute them. That's going about to establish your own righteousness and establish your own traditions. Follow the traditions, the righteousness, and the things that Christ, the Most High, and all of the patriarchs and prophets and honorable men of the scriptures left for us to do. And that's worship on Saturday. Thank you for watching. Thank you for coming to my channel. This is Ariel AVT, and we'll see you back here with another video shortly. Remember, you're always granted the opportunity to change your mind, change your ways, and change your actions and attitude every single day. Okay? It's your boy Ariel. Follow me on Facebook under Prayer Session. Follow me on Instagram under Prayer Session. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram under Ariel Inspires. Also, check out the merchandise on arielmerch.com. Grab you a shirt, grab you a hat. Make sure you support the brand, support the mission. We truly appreciate all the likes, the comments, the shares. And we ask that you share this video with a friend, share this video with a family member, and be sure to always study your word. Peace.